cops on me. On a mission to be champs since they let me free.
Prepare for combat, my adversaries crumble. Face it, I got a reputation for damage. Busters get ready to rumble. They lock me in a cell, have me trapped in a living hell. Though not guilty, I'm still in jail. Brother, I serve my time like a soldier. Maintain composure. My shadow boxing, a fight to the death. Busting boulders, every boxer with a pair of gloves. Best give up love. Here's a man from the makings of a thug. A lethal weapon, mind sharp. And in my heart, there's a wish to shake the world with the flurry of my black fist. Now once a high school dropout, now I'm the $1 million champ. Who's the next to get knocked out?
What's going on, everybody? Another episode of Cheesy's Box Show. Angelo here. I wasn't even going to do a show this week, but something came up, so I wanted to talk about it. And anyway, I wanted to give my review of Terrence Crawford and Julius Indongo this Saturday. First things first, follow us on Twitter, Cheap Seats Box, iTunes, rate and review UBNIC's unofficial sponsor. Please help us out, people. Follow the show on all the platforms, including the YouTube page. I would truly appreciate that. It's been a couple weeks for me. It was going to be one more week. I hadn't even planned it. As you can hear the cars going by, I pulled over on the side of the road while I'm working, and I'm like, you know what? I got to say something, and we'll get to that. But I've had a pretty shitty week, so I'm a little fucking salty with some of this stuff going on. But let's get to the nuts and bolts of everything. Let's start the undercards first before I go full in on the Crawford and Indongo thing. Shakur Stevenson fighting some bum to open up the ESPN portion of the card, the live version, not the stuff that was on their app. The one thing I will say about Stevenson is he's not living up to the hype. It's early, so I'm not going to go full in on him or anything like that. But the one thing that you do notice is that you don't see special on him. You know what I mean? You don't get that feeling of like you're seeing something special. And it's not just the power, which he doesn't seem to have very much of at all. It's just he's not wowing you. This is a guy, I think they were saying that this guy that he fought just got beat by a guy who was 3-14 in his last fight. So a guy like that, and Top Rank is really good at building the resume and the careers of young fighters. So trust me, this guy was put in there to showcase Shakur Stevenson on ESPN. That's the only reason he was put on the TV telecast. He just has not lived up to expectation. I don't know if he ever will. He will be a nice fighter, but he's in the realm of a Joseph Diaz, where the power isn't there. Where Diaz doesn't wow you, but he does impress you with his work rate and his toughness. And we have, that could come from Stevenson, but we haven't seen it. I think he's going to be a little bit less than a guy like Jojo Diaz. Dimitri Bivol. Jesus Christ, I'm way the fuck off. How about Alexander Gvozdyk? How about that? That's where I'm going. Against Craig Baker, a guy who was from Bay City, Texas, which is about 45 minutes from where I'm standing right now. And I got to be honest, I never heard of fucking Craig Baker. I didn't know who he was. And the worst part was Baker looked terrible. He was not there to win. He wasn't even there to survive. He was just there not to take a beating. And lucky for him, Gvozdyk obliged and really didn't put a beating on him. He's sitting there playing with his opponent, toying with him, doing that little pity-pat bullshit that the Ukrainians like to do sometimes. We've seen it with, now with Gvozdyk, we've seen it with Lomachenko, we've seen it with Alexander Usyk. These guys haven't fully learned when an opponent is there and put in front of you to look good, it is best to look good and look your best. But that saying, I still think Gvozdyk is one of the best young fighters today that don't have a title. But a performance like this, where again it was designed for you to look good, you didn't. You you did just enough to win, and then once you finally got through with the power, you ended it. But you know what? This fight could have been over in 2 rounds instead of 6 rounds. Very unimpressive, very boring. Nobody who saw you for the first time on ESPN is like, I can't wait to see that guy again. The performance against a guy like Yunieski Gonzalez, yeah, that's the kind of performance they were hoping to see from you, but they didn't. So let's go to Crawford and Indongo. First of all, the crowd was amazing. It reminding you of old school crowds. And I would equate this to what Michael Nunn used to do, I think, in Iowa. Because you have a non-traditional boxing area like Lincoln, Nebraska. And the crowd was amazing. They were in there strong. 12,000, was it 12,600, something like that? Sold it out. Great crowd. And the best part was, let's be honest, these first 3 cards on ESPN were designed to reintroduce the mass public to Manny Pacquiao, non-pay-per-view wise, to showcase Vasyl Lomachenko, and not just to unify, but also to showcase the skill of Terrence Crawford. And Crawford, unlike those other 2, capitalized on his opportunity the most out of all 3 of them, obviously. In the Manny Pacquiao case, that was obvious, but even more so than Vasyl Lomachenko. And it was early on. You saw the difference in class. I think we all knew that Crawford was in a different class than Indongo, but I don't think we all thought that class there was that much separation in class. We knew it was at least a level, but it looked to be 2 to 3 levels. There was nothing that Crawford couldn't do. There was nothing that he didn't do that he wanted to do. He was countering him beautifully. Indongo was wide open, and he was game. I'll give him that. He was game, yet he knew he was outmatched early on, like probably 45 seconds, a minute and a half into that fight. He already knew he was outgunned. But he was game. It's not to take anything away from Indongo, but it's just that's the level of which Crawford's at. That's why me and JP both had him as one of the 3 best fighters in the world. He has separated himself, and I wasn't always the biggest Crawford fan, but he has separated himself from almost every other fighter going today. Look, the sky's the limit for him. I can't wait to see what he does next. He's going to go to 147. Look, instead of going the WBO route, because you have all 4 titles, you have the opportunity to open up the avenue to more title fights and more opponents by going a WBA, an IBF, or the WBC route, because those titles are currently on the other side of the street at the PBC. But because you're coming up as a champion from a weight division below, you will get thrown right into the mix at either the 1 or 2 ranked opponent. I would go IBF route because they tend to mandate their fighters defend their titles. That's the way I would go. Yeah, it's Errol Spence, but you know what? You got to do what you got to do. Or go the WBA route. Seeing how Thurman has 2 titles, he may actually drop one instead of fighting you. But now you open yourself. Now Tom Brake has the WBO and the WBA. If you go that route, you have to open up avenues. You have to do your own bidding. You have to tell Bob, no bullshit, I'm going here and this is what I'm doing. Then that's how you get stuff done. You got to open up routes. Otherwise, they're controlling 3/4 of it. You got 1/4 of it, and you only got one sanctioning body feeding you opponents. This way, you would open up half of the sanctioning bodies to feed opponents into you. That's the way to go as far as I'm concerned. But nothing but an amazing performance. What we saw with you jumping in the air, that picture is pretty iconic, and the crowd going crazy after you knocked him out with the body shot in the 3rd. It's just an amazing performance. There's really nothing else to add to it except for one thing. And that's what was said today on Twitter. And that is Terrence Crawford's tweeting out, I'm glad everybody sees how much different, or what was the exact quote, how much they promoted, ESPN promoted this fight compared to the first two ESPN cards. The implication being that it was racist because that they promoted your fight less because you're black. How do I know that that was implied? Because I'm not stupid. Because I live in America and I know how people say things and write things to stoke certain flames. Also, if you look at the comments underneath it, there was a lot of people who agreed with it, saying they can't hold you down, they can't hold you down. Nobody's holding you down. You're a fucking millionaire and a grown man, so fucking act like it. We've said this a lot on this show, but if it's racism, we're gonna call it as racism. Now, one, did I notice any difference in the... Let's go with you and Lomachenko, because that's really the comparison, because Manny's not going to compare. You're not at that level. He earned it over, the last 20 years. Okay, so let's go with your two. For me, I don't watch a lot of ESPN anymore. But anytime I did, I saw advertisements for your fight. Same as when I saw advertisements for Lomachenko's fight. You were also on the Lomachenko card doing an interview, if I'm not mistaken. Also, the day after, they were talking to you on ESPN. Also, after they left the fight, they went to SportsCenter and were talking your fight. So, again, I don't understand. Bring some fucking facts other than just, I feel like. Because this is what we talked about. People will ignore the fucking facts and just go with their feelings. Well, I feel this way. Yeah, but what do the facts tell you? Just stick to the fucking facts. Quit being a whiny little bitch about shit. I get tired of this stuff. Whatever you think it was, it wasn't. Sometimes shit just isn't fair. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If something happens to you and you're black, and something happens to somebody else and they're not, that doesn't necessarily mean it's racist. Sometimes shit just isn't fair. Especially when we're talking about entertainment, especially when we're talking about sport. When we're talking about real legit shit, like stuff that happens on college campuses at one campus, and one guy, a black guy, a athlete, will get his scholarship taken away, will get thrown in jail for years, and then you get a guy who was at Stanford and he does the same shit and nothing happens. Yes, that's racist. There's no way around that shit. But because something you think happened to you that didn't happen to somebody else, that doesn't necessarily equate it. Example 2. Tyson Fury wins the heavyweight title. The next day, the IBF strips him because he says he has no plans on defending it against the mandatory, because he may do a rematch against Vladimir Klitschko. Stripped him. Fast forward 2 years. Anthony Joshua beats Klitschko. Has a mandatory for the IBF title. He says, I'm going to forego that mandatory to have a rematch with Vladimir Klitschko. Does the IBF strip him? Nope. They grant him the chance to fight Klitschko again. We know what's happened. Klitschko has retired, but they did not strip him. Same exact, literally to the opponent. The only difference was who they did it to. Was it racist? No. Shit just isn't fair. Sometimes they just like certain people more than they like. In this case, they liked the black heavyweight more than they liked the white heavyweight. I guess probably because he's a nice guy and Tyson's a fucking asshole. And they can make more money with Anthony Joshua. Just how it is. Example number 3. After this fight, they're talking how you, outside of Floyd Mayweather, are the biggest American draw going today. A statement that is clearly not true. I will give you a fact. This is the most tickets you sold, 12,600. Last year, Jose Ramirez had 2 fights in Fresno. One did 12,000, one did 13,000. That's more than yours. He's an American. I know he's Mexican descent, so a lot of people don't get it. That makes him the biggest American draw outside of Floyd Mayweather. Do I think it's racist because I'm Mexican? No. Because what we've been taught in the United States of America, that race is only 2 races, that's white and black, and a lot of people think in those terms. So what I try to do on this show sometimes is broaden the horizons, broaden the thought process. There are more than 2 races in this world. Jose Ramirez, 13,000 tickets sold last. Does that make him the most... I'm sorry, I got cut off there. Does it make it racist? No. It's just the way people think. Nobody's trying to hold anybody down. Also, when they talk about who's the best American fighter, is it Ward or is it Crawford? How come a guy like Mikey Garcia isn't considered? He's American. What's the difference? Hell, Jose Ramirez is an Olympian for the United States. Did they ever consider him for the biggest draw? Nope. Because we've been taught that there's only 2 that exist. Is it racist? No. It's just closed-minded thinking that people have fallen into because they get drawn into this race-baiting bullshit. And that's what it is. Open your minds, people. Just call it how you see it. Don't let shit cloud your fucking judgment, cloud the way you fucking see things, and how you want to twist things. If you look for something wrong, there will always be something wrong. So a lot of times it's you who have the problem when you're always finding something wrong. We all have jobs, and when people from the outside come in to see what's going on, what's going wrong with the office or the company you work for, they're always going to find it because that's their fucking job. And when you make it your job to find shit wrong, racially or any other way, you're going to find it. That's just how it goes. So stop falling into the trap. Just take things for what they are and call them how you see them. That's what I do. That's what JP does. Let's just all do that shit and get around all this other bullshit, all this other whininess of how you're being held down because, look, it didn't happen to him. You know what? Fuck that. Sometimes shit ain't fair. Isn't that what we teach our kids? Life ain't fair. Sometimes you just got to man the fuck up and deal with it. Say, you know what? I'll put on a performance, which Crawford did. Kudos to him on that. And now, guess what? Out of all 3 of those people who perform, guess who everybody is going to want to see most out of those first 3 cards on ESPN? Terrence Crawford. That's how you shut people up, and that's how you make your own fucking luck. I had to say it. I had to get it out. There it is. I wasn't going to do a show this week. I'm not talking about the boxer versus MMA fight. It's a work. It's not even real, people. If you think it's real and you try to talk about it like it's real, you're dumb. You're fucking dumb. JP will probably do a show about it, and he's going to tell you about how he likes the spectacle of it. That part, it is what it is. It's a fucking WWE show. There's nothing more, nothing less. I ain't going to talk about Cotto Kamagai, because that is also bullshit. The fact that it's for the WBO title is fucking bullshit. Kamagai should never be fighting for a title at this point in his career, and Cotto's coming off almost a 2-year layoff after a loss. He shouldn't be fighting for the title. So, whatever. Could it be a fun fight? Yeah, maybe. Will I watch it? Yeah, but it don't deserve to be broke down, and it doesn't deserve to get that kind of level of attention. So, follow the show again on Twitter, at CheapSeatsBox. You can let me know if I'm right or wrong, how you feel. But I'm usually pretty right down the middle. Doesn't mean you're going to agree with me. But at least when I bring my opinions, I will back them up with facts. What I base my opinion on. So you guys do the same if you're going to challenge anything that I say. Email the show, cheapseatsboxing@gmail.com. Questions, comments, anything like that. We're always open to hear what you guys got to say. Enjoy whatever quote-unquote fight you're watching this weekend. I will not watch the fight. I'm not one of those guys who's not going to talk about it and then what? I will not. I never watched one whole round of Pacquiao Rios. I didn't never watch one whole round of Floyd versus Berto. And I will not be watching one round because you'll see a highlight here on Twitter. There's nothing you can do about that of boxer versus MMA guy. So until JP show, remember, this is where the fighters fight and the fans commentate, and you can hear all the cars, and they're killing me. And we do it just like you from the cheap seats because we ain't buying no tickets. God damn it, peace.
Believe that I'll never be shamed again. Again, I'll be the next heavyweight champion. Call me crazy, but no one can fake me. I'm the product of the